Hello, everyone. We would like to sincerely thank everyone for being here to celebrate the life of Chuck Doyle. Today, we will honor my father, Chuck, through some of his favorite music, our stories, his photos, his words, his life. To begin, Chuck's eldest son, Ash, will sing The Only Child by our father's favorite musician, Jackson Brown. Enjoy.
Yeah, he sang this to us in the crib, all three of us. So, legit. Boy of mine, as your fortune comes to carry you down the line, and you watch while the changes unfold, and you sort among the stories you'll be told. If some pieces of the picture are hard to find, and the answers to your questions are hard to hold, take good care of your mother when you're making up your mind. Should one thing or another take you from behind? Though the world may make you hard and wild and determine how your life is styled, when you come to feel that you're the only child, take good care of your brother and sister. Disappointments pass, let the laughter fill your glass, let your illusions last until they shatter. Whatever you might hope to find among the thoughts that crowd your mind, there won't be many that ever really matter. And take good care of your mother, and remember to be kind, when the pain of another will serve you to remind that there are those who feel themselves exiled, on whom the fortune never smiled, and upon whose lives the heartache has been piled. They're just looking for another lonely child. And when you found another soul to seize into your own, take good care of each other. Take good care of each other. When you're thinking you're alone, be aware of each other. When you're looking for something of your own, find it in the care of each other. Find it in the care of each other. This is Tracy Chapman. It's a good song too. Give me one reason, and I'll turn right back around. I can't monopolize this service. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ash. Hello, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Priva, and I am Charles Doyle's daughter. My dad was an intelligent, quirky, fun, courageous, and loving human being. He stood out in a crowd, not only for his white hair, but for his strong personality and captivating spirit. He was the guy who wore Speedos at the beach with his family, dressed up as a clown with his kids for Halloween, and shared personal stories with the person in line in front of him at Goodwill. He was the kind of person that made a point to be recognized and remembered. I'd like to tell you more about who my dad was and the legacy he has created. As a child, I was most definitely a daddy's girl. My dad spoiled me with love. He made me pink heart-shaped pancakes for Valentine's Day, gave me lots of hugs, danced with me, sang to me, and sent me flowers and a teddy bear when he was away traveling for work. As a young teen, I was still a daddy's girl. He was the cool dad that everyone loved. He gave me allowance money every Friday to buy dinner and a new shirt at the mall. He let me have parties and sleepovers, and he bought my best friend and I 3-liter bottles of root beer so we could have burping contests and laugh all night long. He encouraged me to have fun and enjoy life. My dad taught me to speak up for myself and be open and honest. He always said, "The truth will set you free." He had a way of communicating that really made you think and see things from a different perspective. You may not have agreed with his perspective or understood it, but he frequently got you to open your mind in untraditional ways. Unfortunately, when I was a teenager, my dad delved deep into alcoholism. This created a lot of strain in our relationship. My dad was able to find sobriety and return to a more healthy lifestyle through the assistance of family and professional help. He became an active member in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and gained so many beautiful new friendships that were vital to his health and well-being. My dad and I repaired our strained relationship little by little. We began to have fun together again and help each other be our best selves. We went out to lunch together, went to open AA meetings, played mini golf. We sang our hearts out at karaoke with the very own DJ we are honored to have here today, DJ Chrissy.
DJ Chrissy!
My dad has been persistently supportive of my dreams. He actually knew my dreams even before I knew them. As a teen, he had a shirt made for me, naming me CEO of what we called Priva Therapy. At a young age, I knew I enjoyed helping and connecting with people, and my dad embraced this strength of mine. As an adult, he continued to support my dreams by having conversations with me about how I can thrive as a massage therapist and become a business owner. He offered to help, told me he was proud of me, and provided me with information he thought I needed. My dad experienced a lot of challenges throughout his life, and especially towards the end of his life. He was diagnosed with colon cancer in the beginning of 2020 and went through surgery and chemo. Although he became cancer-free by the end of 2020, he had some other health issues, including periods of unstable mental health, but he persisted and kept on loving life. He continued to make himself known wherever he went. Even the postal staff remembered him as happy-go-lucky. Even though my daddy, Charles Doyle, has physically died, I know his spirit is continuing to live on. His spirit resides with each of us as we recall a special or funny memory with him, as we visit a place we used to go with him, or as we look at a photo of him. I will always miss his hugs and hearing his voice, I miss having his support with my life choices. I miss him dropping me off books and gifts. But deep down in my heart and soul, I know he is still here for me and for all of us. He will continue to support us and love us in other ways if we are open to sensing it. Dad, I love you very much and will continue to live my life in your honor by being my truest self, by helping others, and by embracing my own unique journey. Now I'd like to introduce my uncle, Chuck's brother, Jack Doyle.
That is a very difficult act to follow.
You got this. Just don't chase too many rabbits. We know how you are.
That was Uncle Andy who chased and caught the rabbits. I just chased them.
Tangents.
Priva, that was wonderful. And it was also a wonderful song that was sung in the beginning. I have to tell you that I was hoping for an audition to sing tonight or today, and I've been working out with my coach. Many of you know her, Alexa. Ev caught me the other night practicing. She said, "You were so loud." She says, "I was playing bridge downstairs and I could hear you upstairs." But I realized after hearing you, Ash, you didn't need me today to bring it down.
Thank you, sir.
And as you heard, I am Jack Doyle. I was Charlie's smaller big brother. And though some of my comments may be redundant, because of my age, they are excusable. Chuck, as I called him, he had many other names. Chuck, Chucky, Charles, River, Slick, and on and on. And I was going to use some of them today, but I decided if I use them, only certain people would know, who I was talking about. So I'm going to just roll over that and just say that I'm going to step back and tell you some things you already know. But Chuck he was raised a devout Catholic, an older boy, in a family very involved in church activities and school activities. With a large separation in age, his older brother, nearly 11 years, was either working or at college, then the military. Charles was considered the baby of the family who argued every morning with his sister, Karen.
That's mine to tell.
This was not rehearsed, and who argued every morning with her as she gulped her tea and cracked her gum. His words, not mine. He actually wrote that segment many years ago and sent it to me. Why, I say here, why? Why did he send it to me? Karen, you will have to speak with him in the future about that. Okay? But it floored me when I saw it. Chuck allegedly served 300 newspapers. I mean, that was almost all Ridley Township at one point, but I guess that was something. He cut lawns, shoveled snow, and at 25, he left home, but remained Dad's favorite pinochle partner.
Oh, well, there goes that one.
I told you I'm going to tell you things you already know, and probably things you already heard by Priva, which is fine. Here's what I did say, though. Rivers was very industrious. That was Chuck's later name in life when he was doing a few other things. But he really sought education. He had a successful career at Conrail, as we all know. Earned an MBA, executive MBA from St. Joe's, started a family, and 3 children, wife and 3 children, who are the reason we're gathered here today. and they've done a tremendous job from the difficult period he went through, all the way through. Karen and I used to meet with them, and just covering different things. And I think their timing is perfect on this. It has worked out very well. And I'm impressed. I really am very impressed by what you've done. Chuck treated our children well. He used to take them on skiing trips to the Poconos. He'd take them to the Jersey Shore, and is remembered fondly by our daughter Anne, who's out in Seattle, safe I hope, as an individual with a unique flair for life and fun pancake breakfasts. Now, I heard about his heart-shaped breakfasts, or heart-shaped pancakes, but I don't know what was so alluring about the pancakes he made for you guys.
They were green.
They were green, okay. I won't ask you what the green was, because I never did find out what he put in them. So we'll leave that as an untold secret. He's been called a unique character, and justly so. He started a company, Energetics, which I never really fully understood. Well, I'm still searching for that person who did.
Fred the Head was the only one.
Fred the Head. I will say that I knew that M&M was mentioned in it quite a bit in this company. Now, M&M collaborated with Pink. Now, we know that pink was his favorite color, but I tried to put two and two together and say if he collaborated with Pink, we live in the Doylestown area, and I've worked in Doylestown for many years. Pink went to high school at Central Bucks West in Doylestown. And I'm figured maybe M&M and Pink, Chuck, in some ways was way ahead of us. And I was just granting him, maybe that was the influence that he had. Now, over the past several years, I am going to revert back to using these different names. And this is one endearing one, Skippy. Skippy battled a number of issues, really, as was mentioned, the alcohol, the cancer, and he conquered them, for which we were all very proud. While he helped others, he received a lot of help from others too. Now, I'm going to digress for a moment, and I'm not trying to be sexist, but I must state that in times of trouble, women are unbelievably reliable. Our sister Karen should be commended not only for the care she gave our mother and sister Ree, but the care that she and Ree gave to Chuck also. They went above and beyond the call, caring for our brother. Frank Chisholm accepted Chuck's cooking lessons and how to make coffee at 4 a.m. in the morning.
That's mine too.
We did not collaborate on any of this. Well, I'll move off that. I'll pretend I didn't say it. And people will probably pay more attention to you than to me, so you can go ahead and say it. You'll probably get a better reaction. So, but things like Gumby and Goofy and Chucky Poo, and these were mostly self-anointed names. They really were. I'll say, Chuck, how do you do this?
Why do you do this?
Why? Because he had another saying, I guess, one of the greatest things in life is doing things that people say you can't do. So he was doing those. He was anointing himself with all these names. Over our last dinner, alone, Chuck and I, we had dinner at Maggiano's in King of Prussia. Chuck could eat, that's for sure. But he told me, he said, I earned a BA at Pierce. I said, yes. He said, an executive MBA at St. Joe's. I said, yes. He said, you know about my PhD in psychology? I said, no, I didn't. He said, well, I got that in the School of Hard Knocks. He said, but he also told me, he said, you probably didn't know it, but I could have been a Rhodes Scholar, except for one thing. I said, really, Chuck? He said, yeah, my grades. I laughed and I said, I had the same problem. Now, I was allotted 5 minutes, and when I spoke at Rees, I was told 3 minutes by that nun. And for those of you who went to Catholic school, you know they had clickers, and I was expecting that clicker any second or a hook to come out. So I'm going to wrap up in a minute, and I think I'll be within my 5 minutes here today.
We're
Chuck,
not time.
you're not at time? Good. My son is, though. Well, I'll tell you, Chuck's greatest attribute, though, really was helping others. He helped so many people in so many different ways, and I'm not going to talk about the laundromat or all the other in line and things like that. But, and it was actually, he did more, so much more, that actually made his life more difficult. He didn't take care of other things that he could have been taking care of for himself, and it was a shame. But he got so much satisfaction out of helping people. It was just a wonderful trait. Now, I really am very sorry that we were not closer in age. Because when you think about it, 11 years basically differential. You don't do the things that if your brother had been 2 or 3 years younger than you. So you really, as he said, way back when, that I was either working or in college or military, and he was basically in grammar school or grade school, grammar school. So I really am sorry that we weren't able to share more and get to know one another better. But I'm learning more and more about Chuck through his children and through the experiences he went through recently. On the bright side, though, for every loss there is a gain for others in the family. Chuck will now be able to improve his golf game because John is already up there waiting for him. And John can definitely turn his game around. Chuck needs some help. I'll make one comment. He did put in another thing that he mentioned to people in line at Goodwill or wherever at the shore, where he talked about he got golf lessons from me and from Dad. I don't think Chuck ever checked Dad's credentials on golf. To the best of my knowledge, my dad, our dad, played 1 round of golf, a half a round. He played 9 holes with me at White Manor Golf Course, Country Club, and he says, that's it. Now, if he was teaching Chuck, I don't know what he was teaching, but maybe he had a book or something he was teaching him out of. But I can tell you, John will be able to teach him, and it'll be good for Chuck because he never could beat John then, and I think no matter what lessons he gets, he still won't, but at least he'll be improving his game. The other bright sides are Dad now has his pinochle partner back, and Mom has the baby of the family back. I appreciate everyone coming here today, and I'm just so proud of Ash, Travis, and Frida for how they've handled everything through this difficult time. Thank you all, and I'm going to turn it over because I think I'm maybe 6.5 minutes now. And now I'd like to introduce our next door neighbor from way back at our first house on Essex Avenue, Woodland, and Ron McCracken would like to say a few words.
I've got the timer on you too, Ron.
It's most interesting to be in an environment like this when normally there would be a great deal of sadness, but I appreciate the joy that all of you have expressed to one another and in the memory of Chuck. I won't quite be as long as the previous speakers. I see a few sighs back there. And but I decided that since I didn't have material with me, I would just simply quote the entire book of Revelation in the Bible.
Time's up.
Good old KJ. Chuck and I had great times together. Of course, I would tease him about being a kid, and we played a lot of golf together. And it was most interesting that when he would take his backswing, I'd always have a thing that I called I can't help it, and I would always make a noise with my throat. And of course that eliminated any completion of the golf swing. And he'd always say, oh, come on, and I would do this several times. One of the things that I'm most proud of Chuck happened quite recently, and I don't know whether the family knows this or not. Perhaps they do. But Chuck saw a legless man on Fairview Road in Woodland in a wheelchair. And that man assumed that position every day. And he would get help from passerbys and so forth. And when Chuck came to visit me fairly recently, Chuck gave the man $200. I was most impressed by his generosity, but more impressed by his ability to have such compassion towards someone who has gone through a lot. And Chuck, of course, has gone through a lot, so he knew from his experience how difficult life can be. He came to my house, and he always wanted to give you something. And I said, Chuck, I don't want anything. And he said, oh yeah, you gotta have it. And Chuck came to the house with a hat about as tall as me. And neighbors are kind of looking around and looking at each other, what's this, So my next door neighbor, my newest one, Stan and Jackie, with their little boy, who's 6 years old, little Vinny, have been wonderful neighbors, just as the Doyle family has been and were. And Stan was standing there, and I said to Chuck, Chuck, that's my new neighbor, Stan. He immediately leaves me and walks quickly over to Stan. Stan goes something like this, because Chuck had the hat on and the whole thing. And it was kind of funny. Stan looks at me like, what's happening here? But Chuck had that kind of a personality where he could meet anyone. And he always surrounded himself with unusual people. They had done unusual things in life. And I used to tease him about that. And so it was several years, the Doyle family, Mrs. Doyle and the dad, of course, and they were like my second family growing up, without question. And they disciplined me. Mrs. Doyle, would say something and and then it was just a time of, I had a family after all, because I'm the only child. And so, believe it or not, I am still single. And so perhaps with this situation here, I might meet my future ex-wife. Anyway, Chuck left some things for me. And I said, Chuck, I don't want these things. And Chuck needed some ties. He was going to be going to a business meeting or something. So I got him some ties. And when he finally left, I looked around, and there at my car was something he had in his car, and that was something to wipe off tires and things like that. And that was the kind of guy he was. He was very, very generous. And we had some great time, particularly on the golf course. And so I look back at this time and with a little bit of sadness, because a part of my extended family, including Marie Doyle, as very special moments in my life. And there's 2 left. And I wish for them long lives because I want them around. It's still part of my family. And so I rejoice in one sense that Chuck's not experiencing pain anymore. His soul is in heaven, enjoying whatever heaven has to offer. And the scriptures do say that there's going to be things that we will not even imagine that's going to be wonderful in heaven. And so he no longer has to worry about sickness and the things that are involved with being in pain. And yet through it all, Chuck did so much for people. And he did have a positive attitude. He told me that he was going to beat cancer, and he did. And it was such a surprise that he, of course, died of a heart attack. And so I stand here as a person who has been touched by Chuck. Chuck occasionally would call me at 11:30 and 12:30 a.m. in the morning. And I said, "Chuck, it's 12:30 in the morning." He said, "Yeah, I know, but you always stay up late." So that's the kind of personality he had. And so I am so glad that we could all get together here this morning and this afternoon. And I have been so glad that I was a part of what I called my extended family, and that was the Doyle family. And again, thank you so much for all of you who came this very day as we remember Chuck. Thank you. Oh. I'd like to introduce now Chuck's son, Travis Doyle. There you go, Travis.
Thank you,
He's gonna
Ron.
do a little stand-up. He's got more jokes than me. I'm a little jealous.
Pressure's on. Ron, thank you so much for your kind words and everything you've shared with our family over the years. That was very heartwarming. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, as the middle and wild child, I was obviously the easiest for my dad to raise. Even with my antics growing up, my dad would find the grace to instill all sorts of ways in handling life's challenges. Whether it was seeing a problem as an opportunity or maintaining a positive attitude through a challenge, Chuck was always the person to help create an alternative perspective. He helped me to try to never waste an opportunity to learn and grow. "You are never too old to hug your dad," was something he would tell us kids. Chuck was the kind of person who encouraged us to lean into our emotion, to feel something deeper, and how that was what life was all about. He looked for the importance in others. As we know, he was the kind of man who would give you a little too much of his time of day. When he was in chemo for colon cancer last year, he knew all the life stories of the people around him. Come to think of it, when did he not know all the life stories of the people around him? His smile and gregarious nature could put anyone at ease and befriend even the least social person. He was the kind of man who would paint his bedroom pink because of the positive psychological effect of that color. As you can see, the pink theme that came out today. Shout out to my brother Ash. And Uncle Jack's shoes. Oh, and pink and Karen's shoes. Now, he was not the most talented golfer, but he could hone in and bring home the award for closest to the pin. He was the type of man to write a poem for your event with the fullness of his heart. Even though he would tell you the complaint department is closed today, he would listen to your grievances and help you find your own solutions to your problems. I owe a lot of the skills that I have today from the foundation that he built for me as a father. I am forever grateful for the opportunities he gave me to become the person I am today. He will always be in my head with his insightful ways, especially one he said frequently, Empty rooms love darkness. When we were kids, our dad would take us into the high rises in Philly, where he worked for Conrail, and we would watch the Thanksgiving Day parade from above the floats. He liked to show us that there was always another angle. I believe his father instilled this in him, and he instilled that in us. You travel farther to further your education, was a saying his father would say to him. I never knew as a child how much my father's words and his father's words before him would mean. How much perspectives would shift, and how what he taught me would adapt and continually find new meanings over time. My relationship with my father was like this, as his relationship with many of us was. It taught us things we didn't realize we were learning in the moment, but he always knew that. He always knew our perspectives would shift and life would keep changing. Although the past 20 years could be chaotic at times with Chuck, he managed to find a path to sobriety and embrace that for the 13 years up until his death. I will always be proud of his strength in this battle. I will always be blessed with the perspectives and skills he laid as a foundation for me and my siblings. And I will always be grateful for the last moments I spent with him. It was the normalcy I needed amongst some of the chaos a lot of us have experienced with Chuck. During our last time together, the week before his death, we had a wonderful lunch full of laughter. Thank you, Dad, for those moments and all the moments you have given us. You were a great father even when you had your struggles. You managed to keep a path to sobriety even when heavy challenges around you could test that. As we mourn your death and we approach your November 26th birthday, we reflect on all the goodness you brought to this world. We love you. Thanks, everyone. And now I'd like to pass the podium to my brother, Ash.
Well, he said he was a wild child, and that was maybe growing up, but I'm the wild card in adulthood.
All right, that's fun. Like we're not having fun already, but no, he had more of the jokes. But we greatly appreciate you all coming. For those not aware, I'm Chuck's eldest son. So the eldest, but also craziest sibling, is speaking the last of the three of us. And Priva and Travis are trusting that I won't go off the rails. I'm the wild card, baby.
I'm a closer, man.
Yep, just gotta keep your composure. I was crying yesterday in the poem's tight. God bless Papa D's. But like the crazy 8 signs I've been getting from Pops, it's funny, I know I went to get pink stuff for him in honor of him today, and the day that I got the suit jacket that I'm wearing, I believe a Boscov's, and the shirt I got at Macy's, as I was pulling towards the house, or right in front of the house, and turned about to turn left into the cul-de-sac where I park, my trip meter was 88.8, and then I think it was like 129 miles and 888. But that's like the sign from Dad. Like I keep getting crazy 8s, you know, the kind of nutball that he could be. So I'm wearing pink in honor of him today. It was one of his favorite colors, pink golf shirts and all. And he convinced our mother when we were growing up to paint their newly renovated bedroom pink and defended its psychological properties in this pitch. Hence why we chose a pink garden for his remains, and he's here with us now in spirit as well. His body may have been burned, but I sometimes call him Obi-Wan Chucky, as I believe his soul and spirit will always be with us. The Force will be with you always. Since he passed, I often find myself talking to him, especially when alone in my clean car, messy office, or somewhat presentable bedroom. I will always love him, and I miss him most of the time. Almost all the time, but you know. Regardless of any disagreements we may have had, as both my father and I could be stubborn, we always knew he loved us kids, and we always loved him. Priva, Travis, and I consider where we are to be hallowed ground where our dad was concerned. He was involved with Toastmasters, speech writing, and making organization when we were growing up, as he was preparing for and then participating in, and eventually graduated from St. Joe's Executive MBA program. And he spoke at Toastmasters events here at the Desmond. About a football field away, was where the Malvern Center 12-step clubhouse was for many years. And I can count on more than my two hands number of meetings that I attended with my father and his AA buddies here, some of which here today. Thank you all for coming, and sometimes my brother and sister as well. He frequently mentioned how with communication, only 10% is the actual words that we speak, 60% is body language, and 30% is intonation. I never forgot that, and it served me well both personally and professionally, including working in community mental health. This communication factor was a key part of one of his Toastmaster speeches, a draft of which we still have. He was a great father growing up. He was always there for us and supported us kids, not with just school stuff, but with hobbies and making friends. All three of us became good with people partially from his influence and guidance. He staked both my brother and I in the football pools he ran for friends and family, including Conrail and golf buddies, and taught us how to look up statistics and study coaches, etc. Honest to God, I really first learned Microsoft Excel from helping him with keeping track of everything, including in that pink bedroom. Sometimes the eldest gets roped into certain things first, like a little under the table sports betting. Misdemeanor, not felony, misdemeanor. I swear it was just misdemeanor level. I also got roped into hard gardening and yard work and stuff, but I have plenty of good memories for it though, and we talked about the NFL games as they happened. In adulthood, he became more introspective at moments, but was almost always reachable by phone. I have good memories of spending time with him, not just meetings and meals. Us kids will play miniature golf with him or hit a bucket of balls. Travis and I played 18 holes in Ingleside with him in the past 5 years. Dad's favorites in music like Jackson Brown, including what I sung earlier, and we'll play one more Jackson Brown song later, amongst other songs when we're eating. Tracy Chapman and Joan Armatrading as well. All that music has a special place in our hearts, and we have a Spotify playlist going in his honor. I started that even before he passed. Our dad had a wide music collection, and he did the Columbia Records thing back in the day and had a ton of CDs. He would be called today a middle-class budget audiophile, like a super music person, more about the music itself and the equipment playing it. Dad supported Travis playing drums, Priva singing, and I playing trombone, trumpet, some piano, a little guitar, and as you heard, singing as well. Music is important to all of us. He instilled that in all three of us kids. And every time I hear Jackson Brown until the day I die, I will think of my father fondly. We have DJ Chrissy here, God bless her for coming, not only due to how music was important was to Dad generically, but also because he often went to karaoke nights that she hosted, and he convinced Priva and I to frequently join him, and we had a good time. We had a great time. The only time I've been recorded by at least 4 cell phones, genuinely for what I was doing, was when I roped Dad one karaoke night at the Old Franks to sing rap with him, LMFAO's Sexy, and I know it. So, and I'm still sexy, and damn well do I know it. Even when sober, Dad was always game for a good time, as long as it was safe and legal. He was big on safety growing up. So being the eldest and learning how to drive from him with the safety thing, that was a little interesting. But I know stick now, so what? We learned on that Ford Ranger with the big shifts. I learned stick. Travis and I both learned stick on that car, man. Anyway, but to celebrate personal success of mine when I graduated supervised probation, we hit a casino in Chester one Friday night, not that long ago. I believe he wore one of his memorable hats at the blackjack table. He had a shit ton of hats. Oh, little kid, sorry, Xander. We will always love our dad, and I miss him most of the time, almost all the time. Even through the difficult times, we all knew he loved each other, and that's ultimately what matters. Both my dad and his father wrote poetry, and our cousin Frankie will later read one of my dad's best poems that we still have. I wrote poetry as well and carry on their legacy. One of the things he was known for in the family was writing poems in honor of relatives that have passed. He wrote one for his father and one for Uncle Harry, amongst others. So I'm still working on my sonnet in his honor, but I couldn't get it quite right before this event. So instead, I'm going to share a poem I wrote for him in the holidays in 2012. He kept a card all of these years. The context was I didn't get to see him near Christmas Day that year, partially due to working in community mental health at the time. And this poem was part of my apology to him and not seeing him quite near Christmas Day. It's entitled Thankful for You, Thankful for You. Our most precious presents are not our prized possessions, or the experience of a moment's obsessions, but our loved one's presence. Beyond doubt you will be missed. Without you there's a rift. You here and now is a gracious gift. Making time with each other we must insist. Oh, how we must cherish each moment and live soulfully with heart's intent. So thank you again, everyone, so much for coming. Our dad will be so happy to see all of you here, and he's here with us in spirit. We know the good memories outweigh the sadness, like gregarious character that he was. So many darn stories, man. I'm sure we're gonna be telling tons of stories at the end here. But and our Aunt Karen Chisholm will be speaking next, our dad's living sister.
Take all my good lines.
I'm really not sure what I'm going to say because my brother took most of the things from me. So I will start out with thanking everyone, as everybody else has done, for coming. We love Chuck, and as you all know, he was a special character. He was always into many different things at the same time. Describing him as very active would be a gross understatement. But then again, he was that way his entire life. You could always expect the unexpected with him.
Yep.
As my brother said, he was called Charlie from the time he was born, named after our uncle. Then he went to Chuck and all the other names Jack mentioned. But the most famous one that he and I had, I called him Chucky Poo, and he called me Karen Poo. And we never ended a conversation or answered any differently. We had a very close relationship, being only 22 months older than he was. We fought. He complained about me a lot, but we loved each other a lot too. I'd like to give you just a few examples back to his childhood. As we said, he was a rambunctious type of boy, and Mom hung her clothes out on the clothesline a number of times a week. Well, I would hand her the clothespins, because I always liked to do things with her. And Chuck was trying to get out of the yard, so we were constantly running after him. And Mom did a lot of wash with 6 of us. So finally one day she had had it. She took a rope, the clothesline, and sat him down at the clothesline pole, and there he sat, tied to it, until we finished with all of the wash. Then, because we couldn't trust him in the house, we didn't know what he would do. And then Jack did mention about breakfast. Yes, I did swallow. Even my husband said it as I married him. I make noise. I'm sorry. One day, Chuck played with all the kids in the neighborhood on the street behind us, and he obviously had done something wrong. And he was chased by them, and my sister and I were playing badminton in our backyard. Well, he's jumping all of the fences to get back to our yard instead of running around the block thinking he could beat them. Well, the last fence, or the first fence, was a cyclone fence with points that stick up. And he grabbed it, and he cut his arm open in a big V cut. And he got to over McCracken's fence, and Ree looked at him, my sister, and said, "Oh my God, I'm going to be sick. It looks like a peach." So, of course, she ran away because she couldn't handle anything like that. I ran in and grabbed a towel and got my mother. We wrapped him up, and she ran him over to the hospital to get his stitches. Never did find out who those kids were and what it was he had done. And then another day, he was caught drinking down on the railroad tracks that were a block behind us with a number of friends. I'm not sure where they got the beer, but somebody stole it, I'm sure. So the police were called, and Dad was very close with all of the policemen and politicians in Ridley Township. So Chuck didn't go to jail. He came home to Dad, which I think he would have rather gone to jail. And then one day in high school, I came home from school, and I had a part-time job, but I didn't always go in until later, so I would come home and try and finish my homework. Well, I came in the house, and Reed was at work, and I hear all this noise in the basement. So I go downstairs, and there's Chuck with over a dozen boys from St. James High School. And I said, "What are you doing?" He had my dad's movie camera, or movie not record, what is it? Projector. And a projector screen up, and he's showing movies. And I look, and back then they were called smokers. Well, I call my sister. She comes home from work right away. I said, I can't handle all these boys myself. So she comes down with me, and I go over, and I stand in front of the screen like this so that they couldn't see it, and I'm moving back and forth, and Chuck came up and tried to push me, knocked over the screen, and Ray and I had to buy a new one for our parents because they were away on a cruise with our aunt and uncle. So, he did a number of other things, but I won't go into a lot of detail. Chuck, after he got out of rehab, lived with us for a while. And for that, I sincerely thank my husband, Frank. I know it was one of the hardest things that we went through. Chuck would get up in the middle of the night and cook sausage and peppers and onions, and the smell came right up to our bedroom door.
Chicken carbonara.
Chicken carbonara, yes, yes. Pork roast, and guess what? It was all my food, and he's cooking it all at once.
That's
So, yes. Then, when he was living with us, he took over my computer, which I was still working with my husband in a business. And every night, he was on it till God knows what time, and I'd go in and I'd find him, he fell asleep on the computer. So I'd have to get him up and get him into bed. And then Jack did mention about playing pinochle. He loved picking up Dad and taking him when Dad could no longer drive, and taking him every Tuesday night they went. And then he would also pick up father-in-law, who also played, who couldn't drive at that time. So he just always took care of people whenever he could. When he got through his alcohol programs, sometimes he was living homeless, which was extremely hard for all of us. But that man was buying tents, food, pajamas, socks, and taking them down to the Northeast Philly to homeless people that he met, and he was homeless. He just had the biggest heart of anyone that you would know. Chuck lived by this Serenity Prayer, which I would like to read. I got a plaque of it, which got lost, so I never had it back, but I have this. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Amen.
He did spend a lot of holidays with us, you know, Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving. And Chuck could eat like you would not believe. And I always sent him with more food, you know, to go home, because he loved it all. So, I don't want to take up so much time. I know everybody's probably hungry for lunch. And I just have one more thing I want to say. It's been a rough 3 years for us. 3 years ago, we lost our nephew, John. 2 years ago, we lost our beloved sister, Ree. And now, we've lost Chuck. So it's Jack and I. So we got to keep going, Jack.
And you're going to be the last speaker.
I'm not the last speaker, Frankie.
I mean between the two of us.
Oh. So this is what I do every day. It's called I Thought of You Today. I thought of you today, but that is nothing new. I thought of you yesterday and will tomorrow too. I think of you in silence and make no outburst show. For what it meant to lose you, only those who love you know. Chuck, I'll always love you, and I'll miss you forever. You're always in my heart with everyone else. Thank you. Now, I'd like to introduce my son, Frankie, who was pretty close with Chuck. He would call Frankie whenever he needed help with something or things moved or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
He'd pay me $20 just to stand around in his apartment sometimes.
Hey everybody, I'm Frank, or Frankie is affectionately known. Yeah, I'm not used to public speaking, so I'm very honored to speak today about Chuck. He was one of the most kind-hearted, impassioned, altruistic men I've ever known. Uncle Chuck, or Rivers Doyle, as Uncle Jack pointed out, he was often went by, or Gumby. I'll never forget the time he showed up in the full Gumby costume, and it wasn't even Halloween. He had kind of a mosaic soul. All kinds of little tiles, colorful glass, some polished, some not so much, all put together, making a very special guy. He was super empathetic, often ambiguous, and as we know, he always spoke his mind, no matter what. And in that, I'm going to read the poem he wrote in 2002 called Within. We wait for passionate dreams to mold our realities. We wonder why some days we lose touch with our faculties. Wield whatever thoughts and feelings emanate from your gut. Whisk away any external influence leading towards a rut. Interrogate internal clutter that may impede your goals. Instantly cherish those who strengthen and warm your soul. Intensely embrace any challenge or unforeseen roadblock given. Interject intermediate hope for every moment to feel like heaven. Tenderly touch the past, present, and future days. Troubled trails have enlightened you in many ways. Think of every bubbling baby born who longs to share a smile. Tread the pool of life in your own rewarding style. Hear how love is portrayed in simple and complex ways. Hold these sounds in heart and mind, for they will never stray. Honor and hold those who cross your path to life's success. Heed the call of love and never accept anything less. Influence those who share your unadvertised passion. Invite other perspectives to strengthen your vision. Ignore any force that invades your within. Imagine you have energy to begin. Nestle and hug with the within of your soulmate. Number your shared dreams, for they were never late. Nurture each other beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now you know your withins you cannot do without. Like I said, that was from 2002. I will always remember the good times and not so good times with Chuck. From back in Downingtown, growing up with my awesome cousins. Thank you so much, Ash, Travis, and Pree, for putting this on. I think it's a great way to honor your pop. You know, he's probably up there chilling out with Greg Allman, Roy Orbison, Andy Warhol, talking about the good old days. You can imagine that conversation. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. And just remember, when it rains, always look for rainbows. When it's dark, always look for the stars. We love you, Chuck.
And they're calling out to one another, and the lovers up and down the strand. In the sound of the waves and the cries of the seagulls circling the sand. And the fragments of the songs carried down the wind from some radio. And the murmuring of the city in the distance, ominous and low. I hear the sound of a world where we play, and the far too simple beauty of the promises we made. If you ever need holding, call my name and I'll be there. If you ever need holding, no holding back, I'll see it through. Sky blue and black, where the touch of the lover ends and the soul of a friend begins. There's a need to be separate and a need to be one, and a struggle neither wins. But you gave me the world I was in, and a place I can make a stand. I can never see how you doubted me when I let go of your hand. Yeah, and I was much younger then, and I must have thought that I would know if things were gonna end. And the heavens were rolling like a wheel on a track, and our sky was unfolding, and it'll never fall back. Sky blue and black. Ever need holding, call my name and I'll be there. If you ever need holding and holding back, I'll see you through. You're the color of the sky reflected in each storefront window pane. You're the whispering and the sighing of my tires in the rain. You're the hidden cost and the thing that's lost in everything I do.